Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I understand that you guys just had your lunch recently, so I will try to be more energetic as possible. And of course, you can sleep, but just don't snore. My name is Marcus, and I'm an energy planning engineer from Sarawak Energy. Well, I have around 3 years of Plexos experience, and I mainly focus on capacity expansion planning. Recently, I also had the chance to collaborate with P4I consultants to study whether there is a business case for battery storage system in Sarawak future energy mix. Today, I will be sharing a simple demonstration on how we can use Plexos LT plan to answer the question. Oops. But first, let me start by introducing my company, Sarawak Energy. So Sarawak Energy is a vertically integrated energy development utility company. And by that, I mean we own the generation, the transmission, the retail, the export, basically everything from head to toe. At the same time, I'm also proud to say that we are Malaysia's largest renewable energy developer. This is because Sarawak is very blessed. Sarawak is very rich in hydropower. Around 60% of our energy mix comes from hydro. In terms of scale, we have around 6,000 manpower, and our accounts holder are approximately 800K, while we are serving 3 million Sarawakian. Well, Sarawak Energy was established since 1921, and that makes us around 105 years old. So if you are wondering where is Sarawak? Sarawak is a state of Malaysia, and it is located on the Borneo Island. So you can see the Borneo Island is shown here. It looks like a dog. So there's the dog head, that's the Kota Kinabalu, and our HQ is at the dog tail. So for dog lovers, you are always welcome to Sarawak. Now I'm pretty sure that this room is filled with energy planners and modelers. And I think one thing we have in common is that energy planning is increasingly more difficult and complex due to the everlasting evolving of energy landscape. And by that, what I mean is we have new technology coming in every year. There is a rapid decline in technology costs every year. And there is also intermittency resource. And there is also people riding sharks in the morning. So for Sarawak, the transition includes decarbonization. So we will be planning to decarbonize to phasing out coal plant and diesel plant in the near 5 to 10 years. We also have a net zero emission target, and we plan to reach it by 2050. And Sarawak is a tropical rainforest. We have abundance of solar energy. We have massive plans for solar. Currently, we only have 50 megawatt, and we plan to increase that until 7,500 megawatt in the next 10 to 15 years. But that introduces more challenges, such as dark curve, solar curtailment, solar intermittency. So my question is, under all of this uncertainty, how do we plan for an optimal capacity expansion? The answer is simple. The answer is Plexos. So now let me introduce you to one of the most powerful phases of Plexos, which is known as the LT phase. So LT stands for long term, and what it does is it is able to find the optimal combination of generation new builds. It can tell you when is the best timing for retirement. It can also tell you whether there is a need for transmission upgrade. So the equation is very simple. Least cost expansion plan. It is trying to minimize the net present value. By that, what I mean is it will minimize the CapEx, the OpEx, the fuel cost, the penalty cost, everything about cost. And now let me walk you through a simple demonstration on how we can utilize this. So first of all, our planning team, they will go through a lot of opportunity framework screening to find the technical and commercially feasible candidate plan, and that we have type 1 candidate plan, which is CGT. So CGT is fast to build. It's not too expensive to build. But the caveat here is that our assumption is that the CGT will be utilizing LNG. And we all know that LNG is quite expensive. And to give you a sense on how expensive it is around 2 times more expensive than the fuel cost of our normal gas plant. And then we also have our type 2 candidate plant, and that is the CPS. What is CPS? CPS stands for cascading power sources. Well, CPS, the fuel cost is basically free. It's using water. It's just that we need to pay the water royalty fee to the government. However, there is also a caveat to it. It is expensive to build, and the build time can be quite long. And since we are trying to find the value of battery, so we can simply create case A, that is without battery, and case B, that is with battery. And if Plexos comes out with an optimal expansion plan that has a battery in it, that simply means that battery is beneficial for our system. And after a lot of simulation and a lot of debugging, voila, here we have the results. So what I have here, this is the build comparison between case A and case B in terms of megawatt. So let me introduce you to a few colors. Orange color, that is the CGT builds. We also have green color, that is the battery builds. We also have dark blue colors, that is the CPS builds. So you can see that in 2031, both case A and case B, they have the same builds, which is 1,000 megawatt of CGT. And in 2032, that is where the difference on investment is observed. For case A, you can see that it continues to rely on the CGT. It builds additional of 500 megawatt on top of the 1,000 megawatt. In case B, you can see that it is building 700 megawatt of battery while reducing reliance on CGT. And this trend continues into 2033. Another interesting observation is CPS. For case B, CPS comes in as early as 2034. However, for case A, CPS only comes in after 2036. And fast forward to 2040, you can see that the investment decision for case A and case B are so different. The only similarity is CPS builds. The CPS builds for both cases are the same, around 1,500 megawatt. And now let's focus on case A first. For case A, it is heavily relying on the CGT. It is building around 4,500 megawatt of CGT. What about case B? Well, case B is building 2,000 megawatt of battery while reducing reliance on CGT. It is only building 3,000 megawatt of CGT. And the side note is that we are only using 4 hours battery just for simplicity. And in order to understand the results more, we will have to pass the LT results, that is the build results, into ST phase, which is the production cost modeling phase. So what I have here, this is a mirror chart. It shows you the generation differences between case A and case B. So on top of 0, the top part, that is the generation differences for case B. And on the bottom part, the negative part, that is the generation difference for case A without battery. So we can see that in 2031, there is basically no generation differences because both cases have the same build results. But what you can see that from 2032 onwards, for case A, from 2032 until 2040, you can see that the generation differences for case A, they all comes from the CCGT build, which is represented by the orange color here. And what about for case B? Well, the generation differences for case B, they all comes from the existing generation. And by that, what I mean is, you can look at the yellow color, that is the existing gas plant. The gray color, that is the existing coal plant. The dark blue color, that is the existing hydro plant. Well, there is also a light blue color, that is the CPS generation, because CPS comes in earlier for case B. So what does this result tell you? For case A, we can understand that case A tends to overbuild CCGT just to satisfy the energy or capacity needs. For case B, however, with battery inside the system, it can unlock the flexibility of the existing generation. It can further optimize the available resources, the utilization of the available resources. So in short, battery, it is helpful for our system. And as a side note, I have implemented a constraint which is the 60% capacity factor for CCGT. That is because CCGT is more suitable to be act as a base load instead of peaking. And now what about the costing? We can focus on the capex first. It tells us that case B have a slightly higher capex than case A. And what about the OPEX? Case A has a much higher OPEX than case B. And of course, you cannot see any figures here because I purposely hide it because of confidential issues. But what I can tell you is that case B overall is 4 billion cheaper than case A. And what about for energy surplus? You can see that for case A, the energy surplus is around 3,000 gigawatt hour over the 10 years. Well, this is because CCGT, with so much CCGT in the system can be quite inflexible. And the energy surplus here means the solar curtailment or even hydro spilling. Whereas for case B, there is actually not much energy surplus in the system. And in summary, battery is helpful for our system. And now let me introduce you our Sarawak Energy current modeling framework. So we have all the inputs and assumptions feeding into the LT model. So if you see the solid arrow, that is what we currently have, whereas the dotted arrow, that is currently not considered in our modeling yet. So currently, it is more like a deterministic method for us. We have yet to consider the weather and uncertainty, such as solar uncertainty, the demand uncertainty, and the hydro inflow uncertainty. We also have yet to include any policy target. So currently, we are only using reliability as our target. So you have every input assumption feeding into the LT, and then you will need ST to validate your results. And that is all. Thank you for having me today.
Hi, this is Gabriel from BHP. Just a question, thanks for the presentation. One question, you assumed a CCGT with a capacity factor of around 60%. I'm just wondering why you didn't consider, did you try considering other forms of thermal generation, such as gas reciprocating engines, which have a, I guess, can be ramped up and down a lot easier and have a flatter heat rate curve, and can be used as base load and peaking? Would that change the results?
Yep, that's a very good question. So actually, we do understand that OCGT is also very suitable for peaking, right? And at this stage, this is more like a decision from our management. So, but then of course, the latest information from our management is we'll be trying to look more into OCGT starting from this year. So this result is actually from last year. Yeah. But we do have, we are also actively exploring such as OCGT, pump storage hydro, biomass, and those are for the future case study. Yeah, I hope that's answered your questions.
Okay, I have a question. I'm from Taiwan Power Company. So my question is, how much could you reduce overall system costs by optimizing BESS sizing and placement in your LT model?
Yep, thank you for the question. So for this case study, which is done over 10 years only, case B, that is the case with battery, it is able to reduce. It is cheaper than case A by around 4 billion. 4 billion of present value, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, just from the Economic Regulation Authority from over in WA. I was just wondering, in that graph where you show the excess generation in the first scenario versus in the second scenario? Yeah. In the scenario with BESS, is there a way to, for example, account for the extra generation that is going to be needed to make up for round-trip efficiency when the batteries then discharge what they have demanded from the grid? As a way to, do you think that would make it potentially different, or do you think that it would be a similar story regardless?
Well, there is definitely an efficiency loss in the system, and that is, I think that you can explain that as part of the generation differences here. But currently, I think the round-trip efficiency in my model is around 85% of efficiency. That means 50% of losses. But I think still, in the end, the costing here, it is still able to explain that case B is still better than case A, so battery is still helpful for our system. Yep.
Cool.
We have two gentlemen in front.
Thanks for the presentation. I was just wondering, with the BESS model, does your model account for outage rates, like forced outage rates as well as planned outage rates? Because especially with BESS, if you're losing generation that would charge BESS, there's a multiplicative effect of losing like a hydro station that would be charging BESS, like you lose, I don't know what the factor would be, but more than just the hydro facility in terms of capacity.
Okay, thank you for your question. For context, in our model, there is outage rate for all the generation plants instead of battery. So currently, we do not model any outage for our battery yet, because we don't have a reliable data source on it yet. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
in your model, specifically on the assumptions, have you considered the firm capacity properties on the batteries?
Sorry, I cannot hear you clearly. Can you repeat again?
Have you considered using firm capacity properties on the batteries? Firm capacity.
Firm capacity, is it?
Yeah, capacity.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. So firm capacity is actually a very important input because it somehow it impacts the capacity accuracy assessment. And yes, I did. So for my method, I'm using the max power, which is in megawatt. I divide it in terms of the peak hour duration. Yeah, so for example, a 1 megawatt battery, 4 hours, a 4-hour 1 megawatt battery. Okay, so the capacity is 4 megawatt hour, right? So I will use that divided by the peak duration, that's divided by 4. And that is how I get the firm capacity. Well, I have prepared a table here. Oops. Yep. So if you are talking about firm capacity,
Yeah, that's it.
this is a very good starting point. This is a starting point for your firm capacity value. And this is also provided by Energy Exemplar, so you can also request it from them if you need it. And this only can serve as a starting point because, like I say, firm capacity has a very big impact on the capacity adequacy assessment. So my advice is, this is something like an iterative loop between LT and ST. So you might need to use ST to validate the reliability results. And if it does not meet the reliability result, you need to go back to your LT and change your settings again. Yep, I hope that helps.
Hello. I have a question.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Joe, and I have it's a two-part question, but the first one's very easy. For your CCGT assumption, I understand it was an assumption. Was there any unit commitment assumptions that you have made on the CCGT to be on? So, for example, it has to be on for 4 hours before it can turn off or whatnot. So there's that one. And the related question I have is, if there was a unit commitment constraint of being on for 4 hours or off of 4 hours, what do you think would be the effect of the results that you have on the BESS sizing, given the inflexibility of a CCGT being able to ramp? So it's very similar to the question of firm capacity.
Okay, on your first question, yes, there is a unit commitment settings for my CCGT, and I can think of minimum stable level, the ramp up rate, the ramp down rate. Currently, it does not have any must run constraint, but we do have the minimum 60% capacity factor here, as you can see that I've shown just now. And can you repeat your second question again?
Yeah, so given so you have implicitly put in a unit commitment constraint of 60% capacity factor.
Okay.
What is the effect of that 60% on the actual BESS sizing of the output? So if you changed it to 59% instead of 60%, would the BESS sizing change?
Well, that is an interesting question. And my answer to that is, I would need to run the study again. Yep. Yeah, I think that's my best answer, yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions here. The first question is about what's the demand across the 25 years growth? The second question is, you mentioned about the solar generation, like a large solar growth. And what's the difference between two scenarios? What's the impact to the solar generation build for those two scenarios? Do you assume they have actually solar is fixed, the growth? Thank you.
Yes, I think I will answer your second question first so I don't forget about it. So for your second question, the solar assumption for both cases, they are the same. And then we are not letting our model to decide whether to build more solar or not. It is not in the candidate plant options, yeah. So it is fixed as for now. But we did run an interesting case before this. It's not shown here actually. So we found out that CGT and battery together, okay, so Plexos will be building more solar. They will be building more solar and battery. And we also see that there is a reduction in CGT. Yeah. And I think this result is actually tallied with a lot of different countries. They are saying like solar and battery replacing CGT. Yeah. And then on your first question, we do have a demand projection, and that is completely up to our big customers. So when they are coming in, so that will change every year. But I would say that just as an approximate figure, the demand projection is growing like 6 to 7% each year. Yeah.